So let's get started then. As mentioned, super happy to have Richard Robbins today for our sales success on Productivity Simplified. I'll remind you, again, if you haven't, please introduce yourself. Keep chatting. I love reading the chat. We're going to have time for some questions near the end. So if you do have questions, I will note them, and we'll get to them near the end of the webinar. At the same time, a lot of times people will ask me, is this webinar recorded? And yes, indeed, it is recorded. So you could actually, it's YouTube Live PVR. So essentially you could pause this at any time and come back to it, start playing it at any moment. So definitely, you can do that. I want to remind everybody of our promise to you. And Royal LePage is here to help you maximize your earning potential by providing you with powerful business tools, access to leads and referrals, and training for all stages of your career that builds your skills. And that's really why we're here. And that's why Learning Services, we wanted to develop these webinars, or really work with industry experts on these webinars, because we want to help you with all stages of your career. And I know these webinars, we've got great turnout for these webinars. And essentially our goal here is to help enhance your sales development, to help you learn from industry experts. And I hear a lot when I see new agents, I don't know, who should I talk to, what kind of coaching program is good? And I say, these are great opportunities for you to learn from these people and see who you jive with. And we also want to reflect subjects that reflect what's happening right now. And I know there's many realtors who are really, really busy. And, I've heard from a lot of realtors over the past few years, it doesn't seem to be stopping. So that's one of the reasons that I thought this webinar would be very useful. And without further ado, I don't want to hold them back too much, because I want to get to Richard Robbins, which is what we're all here for. Richard Robbins, best described by his audience, is a true leader with a lot of integrity. Now, those of you who came out to see him at the National Sales Conference, those of you who have been to his trainings out all across Canada know just how great of a presenter he is. He's led his organization for nearly 2 decades. In fact, at this point now, they're celebrating their 20th year in business. Richard Robbins International. That's correct, Richard?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and becoming one of the North America's most preeminent authorities on real estate sales and business performance. For those of you who don't know Richard, he's from Peterborough, Ontario, started working as a realtor at the age of 24. In his first year as a realtor, he earned a 6-figure salary and did so in every single year of his career. And, so he knows productivity. In 1989, he opened his own brokerage, and through his extraordinary leadership, inspired his brokerage of only 20 agents to achieve the highest production per agent of any brokerage within his trading area. And it was there that Richard discovered a profound passion for speaking and helping others to achieve their goals. So you can see, when we talk productivity, I'm very excited to have Richard Robbins on the line with us. So Richard Robbins, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Well, first of all, Mike, this is an hour, correct? Just want to make sure I got my timing right.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much, Mike and Royal LePage Learning Services, for having me today. Obviously, I am Canadian, so I understand all your Canadian markets, and I'll be honest, we've got a real diversity of markets right now. If we look what's going on in Vancouver, different parts of British Columbia, it's much different from what's going on in Alberta. We go to the prairie provinces, and we've got some relatively busy markets, or very busy markets, and then, of course, Ontario's closer to Toronto you are, the more insane it is. Further you go, it slows down a little bit, and then, of course, depending where you are in the east, it can be a little more challenging. So what's interesting about Canada right now is we have what we call micro markets. So the talk I'm going to do today, as far as I'm concerned, and this is up to you to judge, obviously, but it applies to any market. And this talk has really been based around the whole concept of focus. I believe that for any of us to be successful, we've got to learn to focus on the activities that will help us produce the greatest results. And let's face it, in real estate, it's very difficult to do. And I think one of the reasons it's very difficult to do is because we can get caught up, you know what I mean, in so many things, but are they really moving us towards our goals and our dreams? So I put together a presentation, and it starts with really the first PowerPoint, and it says, what is our greatest struggle and our greatest threat to our productivity? Now, if you think that through for a minute, just in your head, maybe come up with an answer. But what do you think is your greatest threat to your productivity? I'm going to give you my answer. And of course, you can determine whether you agree or not. But I think it's distractions. I believe that we're living in a world today where everybody is after your attention. But not only that, you're after everybody's attention. You look at it and say, we're posting on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, and we're sending email communications and blogs and whatever the case is. It's like we're all trying to get everybody's attention all the time. Because I think if you look at it, the secret in sales is to be able to get somebody's attention, which I think is more difficult than ever before. But saying that, it's also a challenge for us. We have these beautiful smartphones today, and they are what I call a blessing and a curse. Now, they're a blessing because, let's face it, we can do a lot of work from anywhere, which is a pretty cool thing. We can find out what's going on Facebook, we can text, we can talk to people on the phone, we can send emails. There's a gazillion apps available. We can get maps, we can get directions. So it's such a wonderful thing. And just like me, I love my smartphone. But the challenge for me, and I think everybody else, is determining, like, am I running my smartphone or is my smartphone running me? Because whatever you're focusing on is getting your attention, and whatever is getting your attention is going to determine your level of achievement. So look at some of these numbers. They're pretty mind-blowing numbers. So the first one is this. It said 69% of people can't go to sleep at night without checking their phone, which is, pretty amazing, and I think we all can relate to that a little bit. But the interesting one is they say that 43% of people actually will wake up in the middle of the night, and if they wake up, the first thing they do is they grab their what? They grab their phone, right? They want to know what's going on. Another statistic said 38% of people today, what they actually do is they actually check their email during dinner with somebody else. And we see that when we go into restaurants all the time. There's another pretty funny statistic that 75% of people have admitted using their telephone in the bathroom, and there's 30% of people that have admitted that they never go to the bathroom without their telephone. Now, I travel for a living, so I spend a lot of time in airports, and I can't tell you the number of times I've been standing in a men's bathroom at a urinal, and I can feel hear a full conversation going on behind me in one of the stalls. So it's getting very, very common that we have these phones, but the question is, are they making us more productive, or are we using them to become more productive? Now, here's an interesting statistic. 51% of smartphone use is for social media. That means 51% of the time the average person spends on their phone is on social media. So again, are we on social media because it's making us more productive, which there are some things we can do in social media that makes more productive, or are we trying to distract ourselves and entertain ourselves and getting caught up in sort of the Facebook news feed, if you will, and then maybe at our desk find out a half an hour later we're still there? Well, that's not going to cause us to be highly productive in real estate. And there was a sign, this was in Haywood, California, but have a look at this. They had this sign in California, and it says, heads up if you're crossing the street, okay? So in other words, what they're saying is that, you can bring up the picture so everybody can see it, but, heads up if you're crossing the street, then update Facebook. Can you imagine that we actually have to have signs now to get people's attention, to get their eyes off of their phone? And here's another sign in Sweden. Take a look at this sign right here in Sweden. Very interesting that we need this. Okay, like it's a yield sign, but in other words, yield for people that are on their phones. So anyway, there was this clinical psychiatrist, and he said that the compulsive use of mobile phones and computers and tablets is an addiction similar to sex, drugs, and alcohol. Now, why? The reason why is because what happens is every time our phone vibrates, or if we see somebody likes one of our posts, or if we get a comment on one of our posts, or if we get an email, or our phone beeps and rings, what happens? It actually releases dopamine in our brain, which is a feel-good drug. Somebody gives you a hug, it releases dopamine. Just like you have a drink, it releases dopamine. You have sex, it releases dopamine. So these are feel-good drugs. So they actually can create an addiction in many of us, and I think you would probably all agree that at times we find ourselves subconsciously or unconsciously, let's say, grabbing our phones, which is really interesting because a lot of people, I can't remember the number, but I think it was 42% of people admitted that they even checked their phone when it didn't make any noise and had not vibrated. Think about that. It's so unconscious now. We're grabbing it and looking at it, and it didn't even vibrate, right? There was no indication there's any message. Now, what's interesting about that is think about the old days when we all had landlines. That would be like going to your landline at home, picking it up, and see if anybody's there. Hello, anybody there? Oh, nobody's there, and you hang it up. You would never do that. You would wait for it to ring. So it's becoming somewhat of an addiction. So what I want to talk about in Productivity Simplified, I'm going to give you 6 ideas or 6 secrets, if you will, that'll help you become consciously aware so that you can become more productive, okay? Productivity Simplified. Being distracted all the time will not cause us to become more productive. So the first one is this. Know your triggers. Now, you're probably saying, what is a trigger? Well, a trigger, and I'm going to show you some triggers. A trigger is a stimulus, okay, that causes you to react positively or negatively. Now, a trigger can be internal, okay, but it can also be external. Now, let me explain a little bit. There was a book written a while ago, and it was written by Marshall Goldsmith. And I love reading books, and I read a fair amount of books during the year. And I can say that this book here was the greatest book I read last year. I've got all of our masters in our coaching program reading it right now. And, people are just loving it. Why? Because he's identified how we can become more productive by identifying some of our triggers. So let me give you some examples of triggers. I'm going to show you this next picture. Now, if you're driving your car and if you see police lights behind you, that is a trigger. What happens when you see that? Your heartbeat goes up. It's a trigger, right? Your heartbeat goes up. Sometimes you'll put on the brakes. You might pull over. You start to panic. You go, oh man, where's my wallet? Do I have my insurance? So that's what a trigger is. See, a trigger is a stimulus. And that stimulus is going to cause a response in you, positive or negative. So here's another trigger. If you're, say, in a 5K race or a marathon race or whatever the case is, the minute you see the finish line, what will you start to do? You'll start to speed up. It's proven. The minute you can see the end, you will naturally start to speed up because that is an external trigger, isn't it? You see it, you'll start to speed up. You go, there's the end. I can run as hard as I want. I only got to go that far. I can make it. But if you can't see it and you're still like a few kilometers away, you're trying to pace yourself. Now, what about this trigger? What if you smell fresh cookies? Is that a trigger? Yes, it's a trigger, right? You smell the cookies and all of a sudden you get hungry and they smell really good. And next thing you know, they're sitting on the counter and you're out there and you're grabbing a cookie off of the tray or off of the dish or whatever it is, and you're enjoying the cookies because it is another trigger. So here's one thing that I'm going to ask you to do is identify what are some of your negative triggers. I'm going to show you a few, but what are some of your negative triggers? So in other words, email alerts, is that a trigger for you? Your phone vibrating and beeping, is that a trigger? Facebook message, is that a trigger? Somebody walking into your office, is that a trigger? And what you've got to do is you've got to consciously, all day long, look at the things that are triggers in your life. Now, this requires a little bit of work. And identify which ones are positive and which ones are negative. Which ones are taking time away from you. There's an app right now called the Freedom app. And I know a lot of people are using this Freedom app. And this Freedom app, what it does is for a period of time, it shuts down everything in your operating device. So you can just focus on one thing because we have so much trouble focusing today. There's an agent in California that I know that what he does when he's in his office, he works in an office and he's a very successful agent. People always want to come in and see him. So what he does, he wears a headset all the time, even when he's not talking on the phone. And if he sees somebody walking towards him, he pretends he's talking on the phone. He starts to move his mouth. Because he knows that he doesn't want those people to come in and waste his time. Because again, the minute he sees them, that's a trigger to do something, so they're not going to waste his time. There's another agent in Red Deer, California that we work, Red Deer, Alberta that we work with. And what he did is he took all of the social media apps and he put them into a folder because he knew it was driving him crazy. Every time, he saw something going on, he had to look. So here's what the secret is, everybody, is we need to starve your distractions and feed your focus. But you have to choose to do this. So you've got to look at everything in your life and say, what's a trigger? Do people walk in your office on a regular basis and disturb you? What can you do about that? There's an agent out in Surrey, BC that he has a sign for 2 hours a day. It said prospecting, do not disturb. He puts it right on his door because he doesn't want to be distracted. He doesn't want to be disturbed. He knows he needs to feed his focus. He's got to focus on getting done what needs to get done so he can produce the results in his life. They're going to allow him to achieve his goals and make his dreams come true. But here's the challenge with this. And I want you to think about this for a minute. Sometimes people what? Sometimes people want to be distracted. You ever notice that? And sometimes we're bored. We want a distraction. But you got to look at it and say, is that distraction serving me? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying that I would encourage you to take a look at that and say, when I look at my whole day, where am I allowing myself to be distracted? And then once I determine where am I allowing myself to be distracted, or what are my triggers, then what is it that I can do to eliminate the triggers? Don't avoid them. See, the secret is people say, I'm not going to look. No, you can't avoid it. It's no different than healthy eating. The best way to eat healthy at home is have no junk food at home. You know, I don't know if you're like me, but my wife will go shopping, and if she buys a bag of chips, now I can sit there and go, I'm not going to eat them. But guess what happens? All of a sudden, 7 o'clock one night, and I don't just have a bowl full. And I've tried everything. I said, okay, I'm just going to put a few in a bowl. I'll just have a few in a bowl. And then I go out and I get another bowl full. And then I get 2 bowls, and then I go, hey, there's not that many left. I might as well eat them all. I don't know if you've ever been through that, but it's just, I can't avoid it. I have to eliminate it. And I think it's something that we all need to consider doing. Say, don't be trying to avoid distractions. Don't be trying not to look. Don't be trying not to eat the junk food. What you need to do is put yourself in a position where you're not trying to avoid it, you're eliminating it. You turn all the notifications off. You move apps into a folder so you don't see them. You close your door so you're not going to be disturbed. Put a sign on your door, lock it. Do whatever you need to do so you can get the real work done. Because guess where the money is? Guess where the sales? It's in the real work. It's in doing the real work, not being distracted, okay? Not trying to get rid of our boredom, not trying to do something because I don't want to do that. And I think we all know those things we need to do every day that are going to help us produce great results. So that's the first one, is to identify your triggers and then eliminate your triggers as much as you possibly can. Then the second thing is this: if you want to be highly productive, what you want to do is you want to focus on managing effort rather than results. Focus on managing your actions rather than your time. Now, let me explain this. A lot of people say, well, you know, I want to sell 2 homes this month. So they're trying to focus in on the result that they want to produce. However, I always look at it and say, what are the actions required to produce that result? So I'm just trying to grab a business plan here. So this is really cool stuff. So I was reading through a business plan of one of our coaching members today. And it's right here. And if I read through all of this, what it says here that over the course of your, now this is a team, and this is out in Vancouver, but they need to make 6,000 contacts per year. Now that's 4 people, okay, making 6,000 contacts, because here's what they know. They know that it takes 30 contacts to generate an appointment, okay? It's right there. They know it takes 30 to generate an appointment. So by making 6,000 contacts, which isn't including open houses or at events, that means they're going to go on 200 appointments per year, the whole team. So instead of focusing on the appointment, and we know how important appointments are, but you want to focus on the behavior, the action, what you can control. Like, play a game that you can win. See, here's a game that I can win. I can win a game by saying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to run for 5K, and I'm going to do it in 35 minutes, whatever the number, it doesn't matter. I can win that game. But if I'm always trying to say, but I want to get down to 170 pounds from 178 pounds, I might not be able to win that game in the timeline I want. Maybe it was the wrong timeline. So what I'm saying is, we want to set ourselves up to win. We got to learn to play a game that we know we can win. Because see, time management to me is an illusion. I don't think we can manage time. Time is perishable. It's going to continue to move regardless of what we do with it. But we can manage what we do in the time. So let me give another example of a famous comedian, Jerry Seinfeld. So there was a story about Jerry Seinfeld, and Jerry was, when he was starting out as a comedian, he was going to comedy clubs, and what he did was he was studying some of the most famous comedians at the time. And he was trying to figure out, like, what is it that they do that the more unsuccessful comedians don't do? Talent aside, yes, we know some people are more talented than others, but, there's a lot of really talented musicians that we don't know about. Obviously, American Idol proved that to us, right? There's all kinds of really talented comedians that, they have no recognition at all. They don't have a lot of gigs. So there's a lot of talent in the world, but what is the difference between the one that succeeds at a high level and the ones that don't? And here's what Jerry discovered. Jerry discovered that what do all comedians want to do? They want to perform. That's why they do it. They get their juice from performing. They just want to be on stage. They want to tell jokes. They want the audience to recognize them. They want the audience to laugh. That's why they do it, right? Because let's face it, it's a pretty tough life for most comedians, unless you're the Jerry Seinfeld, the Jay Leno's, David Letterman's, whatever the case is, right? That's a tough road, man. So if you're going to choose that, you're choosing it because you want to perform. So I think about real estate agents. What do real estate agents want to do? They want to do a deal, right? You know, they want to get themselves in a listing presentation. They want to take out a motivated buyer. Well, that's like being on stage as a comedian. But the thing with Jerry discovered that if I want to be on stage more often, and and if talent isn't the issue, and I'm talented, what I have to do is I've got to spend time every day writing jokes. That was the number one thing that all great comedians did. So Jerry took a calendar, and what he did, he put a calendar up on his wall, and he committed to writing for 1 hour every day, writing for 1 hour every day. And every day he did it, he'd take a red pen and he'd put an X through it. And his commitment was to do that 365 days a year. Every day, he was going to write for 1 hour, sometimes longer, but he's going to write for 1 hour. Because he knew that as a comedian, like you might be able to perform a joke once, but if you go back to the same club, you got to have something new, right? So he's got to have all kinds of content. Joan Rivers was famous for this. Joan Rivers, I guess she used to have a card file, right? And she had it in her closet. She could pull out, and it was all alphabetical, all her jokes. Thousands and thousands and thousands of jokes, because she was always writing jokes. Well, see, that's the hard work, isn't it? See, that's managing the effort. So he said, well, I can do that every day. I can play the game to win. So the question is, what is that for you? Think about this. Think about the Fitbit phenomenon going on right now. Why has the Fitbit become, so unbelievably popular? Because they can manage the effort. It's not about a result. It's not about how much weight you're going to lose. It's managing how many steps, which you have 100% control of. So the cool thing about this is when you look at it, you say, well, all we have to do is we got to decide what is it we have control of, and then we've got to do those things every day, the real important work. Now, I put a little cartoon up because I just thought this was funny. It's got something to do with the Fitbit. But it says, I can't get out of bed, my Fitbit is charging, and my steps wouldn't count. Isn't that cute? But anyway, if you look at it, everybody right now, they got all these Fitbits, and the reason is because they're trying to manage what? They're not trying to manage a result, they're trying to manage effort. So my question to you is this. What one thing that if you did every single day would have the greatest positive impact in your business? And we know it's probably going to be some form of prospecting or lead follow-up, right? That's what it's going to be. See, that's like the work of writing every day when Jerry Seinfeld wants to be on stage. And that's the real work that we've got to start to do. And when we start to do that real work with consistency, and if we do it every single day, then guess what? We're going to be on the stage. We're going to be on more listing presentations, showing more prospects and negotiating more offers. So fourth, okay, of 6, is embrace the value of structure and stop resisting it. A lot of people think when they have structure in their life, that it's like putting on handcuffs. You know what I mean? They're going, oh man, I don't want structure. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it, right? Well, the challenge with that is then we start becoming distracted, then we start to move towards sort of the things that are fun, but not necessarily productive. I'm not saying a lot of things we do aren't fun, but the secret about Productivity Simplified is it's productivity. We get to be highly, highly productive. So there's 3 ways I believe we can bring structure. And the first is a schedule. We need to have a draft of what a perfect week would look like. Okay, so I brought you 3 just so you can have a quick look. So this is, one that we just made up in Google, but you can see, family time, business generating time, returning calls and appointments. Then you return emails, return calls, and then maybe family time, or maybe you're gonna have to work some nights. That's all okay. You create a draft schedule. But here's the secret to this. When you look at the schedule, and when I look at our masters, like we work with thousands of agents, but we have a group of masters that are all, high producers. They're all like sort of 800, 900, we got some of them up into the millions. They all have a schedule, and then they try to fit their appointments into the schedule. But the key to the schedule is if you look at every morning for 2 hours, what do? They all spend 2 hours generating business. Now, I've met a lot of really successful agents in my career, and guess what they all do? They all generate business every day. They understand the power. Where when you look at the rest of the agents, once in a while they might generate business. They might do no business generation, maybe a few calls during the week, and maybe do an open house, and they go, wow, I did an open house. That's not enough. Right? If we want to be really productive, we've got to make sure that we do more. So here's a schedule of Marnie. She's from Calgary. So this is what her schedule looks like. Now she's a productive agent sort of around that $300,000 range. but this is what her schedule looks like. She has her brokerage meeting, right? She got lunch. She had prospects. She can see those 3 days a week. And then you see when she does her appointments. And then she leaves Tuesday and Thursday for appointments. She fits them in there. Okay, and then there's another schedule. This is a higher producer. He's around $800,000. And you can see that, he has prospects all morning, and then, catches up, and then prospects again. You can see he's got gym time in there. He's got free time in there. And he tends to do all of appointments at night because he likes to take afternoons off. He likes to pick up his kids, take his kids home. And then he does all of his appointments at night. So that's what his looks like. Now, do they follow this perfectly? No. But at least what they do is they have a draft of a schedule that they can try to work from. And that's the key, is at least have an idea as to what it is you're trying to create. Okay, so the first way to create a little bit of structure is schedule. The second is this. The second is checklists. And I don't think enough agents use checklists. And there's a great book that I recently read, and it's called The Checklist Manifesto. And it was so interesting because this guy's a doctor, and he was studying a whole bunch of different surgeons. And what he found there was a way to stop all infection at the time of surgery. Because, sometimes an infection takes place in surgery, and it could be a dirty instrument, it could be dirty hands, obviously, it could be a dirty gown, they didn't clean properly, or whatever the case is. When you open up somebody's body, like if any germs get in there, you got an infection, it's a big deal, right? So what he did was he created a checklist, a pre-surgery checklist. But what he found is the doctors wouldn't use the checklist. So then he got an opportunity to speak, okay, for the military down in the US. And what he found that all of the pilots, all of the fighter pilots, okay, they follow an exact checklist. And it blew him away. He goes, what's the deal? Now, these are big deals compared to selling real estate. I understand that. But he said, why is it that pilots will follow a checklist, but surgeons won't? He goes, really interesting. And what he discovered is this. So remember, there's a grounds person that's helping the pilot get ready. The ground person holds the checklist, okay? And they check everything off as the pilot's getting ready, everything. Okay, and it's a long checklist, like, is oxygen hooked up to the mask, right? Do you have your seatbelt, your straps on, the whole deal, right? Like, they go through the whole thing. And the pilots will allow a junior to ask them those questions. But the reason they will, because if something goes wrong, who dies? The pilot. However, the surgeons don't want to answer to a nurse. So they don't want the nurse to go, okay, did you put on a clean gown after your last surgery? Did you wash your hands? Did you do this? Did you do that? Why? Because the surgeons, right? I'm the surgeon, you're the nurse. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 25 years. Leave me alone. And not only that, if the surgeon makes a mistake, who dies? The patient, not the surgeon. So what he discovered when he was writing this book is that when it's the pilot's life on the line, they'll do a checklist. But when it's the surgeons, they won't. Now, saying that, they've got, it's sort of become mandatory in a lot of hospitals now, so they've overcome that, but I found that really interesting. So I got thinking about it. I thought, if we want to simplify our productivity, would it make sense that we don't become people dependent, we become system dependent? So in other words, think about this. If you're going on, and I'll give you some checklist examples, if you're going to start prospecting, would it be important to have a checklist? Check everything off. In other words, did I turn my phone off, right? Did I close my door? Am I prepared to go? It would probably be a checklist. And I mean, just a piece of paper where you go ahead and you check everything off. Is that easier than trying to think about all the things you should do to get ready? And the answer is yes. What about a client community event checklist you're doing? What about a pre-appointment checklist? Before we go to appointment, here's all the things we're going to do. What about a marketing checklist when you take a new listing? You put all the checklists. Okay, and I give you some other lead generation checklists. So a CMA checklist, right? Lead tracking checklist, door knocking checklist. You're going door knocking. Well, you have a checklist. You don't forget anything. Open house checklist. It goes on and on and on. So another way to create structure is, now if we got a schedule and we know that we said, okay, I'm committed to generating leads, prospecting 2 hours a day, which you all know we should do, right? You've heard all this before. And then we've got the rest of the schedule laid out when we're going to fit in our appointments, and we're going to generate business in the morning and service our business in the afternoon, which is very important. And then the second thing, what we're going to do is take everything we do and we're going to create a checklist for it. So we don't forget anything. Because the reason this works is because the more you have to think about something, if you read this book, Triggers, the more energy you use. See, your brain is only 2% of your body's weight, but it requires 20% of your energy. And when we start to make mistakes, and when we start to lose our discipline, is when we get tired. Now, when do we have more energy, morning or afternoon? In the morning. That's why you want to prospect in the morning, because you have more energy in the morning. And what you want to do is not allow your energy to get depleted. And when you create a checklist, you don't have to think about what to do. You just go check, 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 check. So first for structure is schedule, second checklist, third are systems. Well, then you go, well, what is a system? And a system ultimately is really just a series of checklists. So now you might say, I'm going to get a listing system, which is just a whole bunch of checklists. So I've got my pre-appointment checklist. I got my appointment checklist. I got my post-appointment checklist. I got my new listing checklist. And then you put them into a binder. Okay, now you've got all of these checklists. Now you got it all laid out. So now your business is starting to become system dependent rather than people dependent, which means you don't forget anything, number one, means you don't have to think about it. You're going to make less mistakes, of course, and you're going to use less energy because now you're not thinking about what you have to do next. And that's the power of structure, which means you have more discipline, right? Which means you don't get tired later on in the day. And there's huge advantages if you read Marshall Goldsmith's book. So the third, okay, the third is this: embrace accountability in all areas of your life. It's interesting because in real estate, and I know you'll agree with this, and I'm going to give you a way to do this, is that a lot of times in real estate, we get into real estate because we don't want to have accountability. So I was on the telephone yesterday with our master's group, and I talk to them once a month, and there's 3 groups, and I spend 1 hour with each group. And I said to the group, I said, you all want to be more productive. You're already productive, but you want to be more productive. So I said, you all have assistants. And I said, yes. I said, would you be willing to allow your assistant to run your schedule and tell you exactly what to do next? So you create the schedule, right? And then your assistant runs it, not you. And you should have heard them go, oh, geez, I don't know if I want to do that. And I said, why wouldn't you? Like if you know that you're supposed to spend 2 hours making lead follow-up calls, focusing on setting appointments, staying in touch with your past clients, following up on the leads from the open house, if you're supposed to do that, then why wouldn't you just go in your office and do it and say to your assistant, look, after everything else, I'll be out in 2 hours. Well, the reason they don't want to do it is what do they don't want to give up? They don't want to give up their freedom. And it's because they don't want to give up their freedom is why they're not producing even a higher level than they already are, because they're avoiding accountability. See, a lot of people, you know, obviously we're in the coaching business, and a lot of people think, well, coaching is for losers. Coaching isn't for losers. Coaching is for winners, right? Like gold medal athletes all have a coach. Why? Greatest golfers in the world all have a coach. Why? Most CEOs of large companies now all have a coach. Why? Because they see the value, okay, in somebody outside of them. They see the value in somebody holding them accountable. They see the value in saying to somebody, between now and next time we talk, we're going to do this. See, in most cases, we're great planners, but we're weak doers. Why? Because we're human, right? Because there's so many things in the world they're going to try to throw us off. So if you look at what I'm talking about here is I'm trying to demonstrate that there's 2 major things we got to do. The first is we got to eliminate the distractions. And the second is we got to create some structure in our lives to get us to do the things that we know we need to do. So Marshall Goldsmith, who's a PhD, and his daughter, who is also a PhD, they created this system. And I'm going to show you the system. It's really cool. And our masters are using it, loving it. They said it's been a game changer for them. So if we go to the next slide, it's called the accountability scorecard. And you all can do this. But what I love about this scorecard, it's not yes or no. It's called active questions. So you'll see at the top, it said, did I do my best today too? And what you do is you write down whatever it is you want to try to do your best. So did I do my best today to generate new business? And you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, the reason you do this is because generally, you want to be able to rate yourself high, which means you're probably going to try to do a pretty good job, right? Like, did I do my best today to reach out to my past clients? Did I do my best today to build positive relationships? Did I do my best today to eat healthy? Did I do my best today to be grateful? Did I do my best today to say positive things to my husband or wife, right? So you could create, I know somebody's got 22 questions. Now, Marshall Goldsmith, now this guy, you know, he's traveled 12 million miles in his life. Like I'm a traveler, and I'm like just over 1 million miles, and that's big. He's done over 12 million miles, right? He spent his life speaking. He spends his life training high-level CEOs. And he said that I have my list, and he pays somebody, a coach, to phone him every evening at 10 o'clock and ask him the questions, and he has to answer the questions, and they keep it, and then every week they give him an average of their areas. Now, what's cool about this, instead of saying, did I prospect today? Because that's yes or no. These are active questions. And what I mean by active is you could rate yourself in every area. So you could be a 6. And then automatically, because you rate yourself, because Peter Drucker said, what we measure gets improved, is that if you're a 6 today, you'll probably try to be a 7 tomorrow. And it's not about perfection, because we're not going to be perfect every day. We know that. But we can constantly be trying just to get a little bit better. And if you can improve by a little bit every day, right, it's amazing what you can do. So we can actually send this. I'm going to get Dana actually to send this over to Mike. And Mike, maybe if you want, if they want, we can make it available to them.
Yeah, for sure. I can do that.
Because we have a draft of one that we've created for our coaching members. So we'll do that for sure. And then just do it. Or if you don't want to do it yourself, find an accountability partner and do it with them every single day. And I love this quote. And I listened to Peyton Manning speak at a real estate conference about a year and a half ago. And here's what he said: as soon as you stop wanting to be coached, taught, or mentored, you're in trouble. And obviously, I couldn't agree with him more. I'm in the business, so I can see the results get. The reason people avoid it is because they think it's for the weak, number one, and it's not. It's for the strong. And the second reason is because, I don't want to put any pressure on myself. Well, guess what? If we want to produce better results, guess what we probably need? A little bit of pressure, okay? Second, so we get 2 more to go. The second is this: knowing your why. Now, this is sort of an interesting one, and I'm taking a lot of information just, from Marshall Goldsmith's book, and he has given me permission to talk about this, okay? And this is a really cool point, because here's what I find. We've got to remain motivated in real estate, and it's hard sometimes, right? Like, we have good days, we have bad days, we all get that. But I find that when we're trying to make a difference, it's easier to remain motivated. So when I say know your why, here's some questions you might want to ask yourself. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? Like, it's a really cool question, eh? Or am I just trying to sell something, or am I truly trying to make a difference? So one of our coaching clients, his name is Tom Joseph. And Tom, last year, I think he sold 140 homes, whatever the number is. But he doesn't talk about selling homes. He said, how many families are we going to help this year? When he talks to his team, it's not about selling homes, it's about helping families. And it's a small shift in the mind. But think about this: when we give something to somebody else, it makes us feel good. That's why they say that the giver always gets the most. And it's why they say you should receive a gift gracefully and excitedly, because the person that's giving it to you is waiting to see your face, and you give them a gift by accepting a gift and being excited about that gift. Because as human beings, there's something innate in all of us that when we give, when we help somebody across the street, buy somebody a cup of coffee, donate to a charity, whatever the case is, when we give of ourselves, like, God created us in a way that it makes us feel good, which is the coolest thing in the world, right? So that tells me that we're probably supposed to do more of that. But what I also see people in real estate that burn out is they're too transactional. All they're thinking about is the deal. All they're thinking about is the money. But I'm looking at it saying that maybe what we need to do is we need to get excited about the possibility of helping people. That's your why. Every day wake up and say, how can I help some people today? How can I help some people today? How can I help some people today? And you will become more productive. And here's why you will. Because all of us, the public senses our intention. I don't care whether you walk into Best Buy and a salesperson walks up to you. It takes you about 5 seconds to understand their intention. They don't say it, but you feel it, don't you? In other words, you can sense, are they really trying to help me right now? Do they really care? Or are they just trying to sell me something? And see, intention is sort of that sixth sense. You probably remember that movie. And what we want to do is make sure our intention is correct. Our intention is about our why. Our intention about what is it we're trying to achieve. And it's just about doing a deal, we're always going to be in trouble. So are you driven by ego or a sense of purpose? And I think when you find your why, what ends up happening is when we determine we're going to make a contribution in the world, the business becomes a lot more fun. Because now it truly is about helping other people. And when people can feel from the deepest part of their being that you're trying to help them, you connect. You create a bond with those people. And Richard Branson, I love this quote by Richard Branson. He said, if you're not making a difference in other people's lives, then guess what? Right? Then you shouldn't be in business. And he said, it's that simple. And I agree with that. I agree 100%. Look at every day when you wake up and say, everything I do today is about making a contribution. Like every email I send, it's got to be making a contribution. Every text I send, every phone call I make. It's like, if you're going to go door knocking, when you knock on that door, by God, you better have something really valuable to tell those people. So you knock on the door and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. whatever, a home just came up for sale down the street. And if you're like most people, you want to know what that home is listed for. So I'm presently out giving all the neighbors a real estate update and tell them what's going on in the marketplace. And then you have the listing with you. You start to talk about that house. That's a value to me. You start to do that with me, we're going to create a conversation. You knock on my door and you say, hey, you thinking about selling? No, right? And that's what a lot of them do. It's crazy. Like, we got to open every conversation with something of value. You make a phone call, open with something of value. You knock on somebody's door, open with something of value. Somebody walks in an open house, open with something of value. That's purposeful. That's when you're trying to make a difference, right? Can you imagine this? Can you imagine a surgeon telling you that you have to get your kidney out because they need the money? You'd be pretty concerned, wouldn't you? Right? Because hopefully, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but hopefully a doctor would only tell me when there's something wrong, right? Not tell me that I need surgery because they need the money. That's what a sense of purpose is. And then number one, this is the biggest one of all to simplifying your productivity. The secret number one is happiness. Now, this is really interesting, everybody. And I'm going to give you 10 quick ways, and then we'll start to close this out. So based on studies, according to the Harvard Business Review, happy people are 31% more productive and have 37% higher sales. And I've also heard they have more sex. Anyway, don't bring that up. But anyway, the happy people, 31% more productive and 37% higher sales. Happy people. But let me ask you this. Is happiness a choice? I think it is. Then Sean Acor, who wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage, he did a survey of 275,000 people from all different professions, right? And here's what they found in the survey: that beyond the shadow of a doubt, happiness leads to success. Success does not lead to happiness. Now, it's interesting. A lot of people think, oh, when I make more money, then I'll finally be happy. I'm saying, no, we need to be happy now. Think about this. If we can't be totally happy with what we have today because we always want something else, we'll never be happy. We'll never be happy because we're always going to want something else. So if you look at it, you say, one of the most important things I believe that we have to do to be productive is, yes, we've got to get rid of our distractions. Yes, we've got to create some form of structure in our lives. Yes, we've got to start focusing on the activities that we can control instead of just wanting the results all of the time. No question. Yes, we've got to say that everything I do every day is about some form of contribution. I want to go into the world and I want to do good. I'm going to help people. But then we just got to wake up every day and say, I am going to choose to be happy. Now, here's something interesting. When my kids were growing up, I used to say to them every day, what are you going to do today? And I just like, they got so sick of me saying this. They'd say, Dad, don't ask me that again, right? This went on for a long time. But here's what it was. Every day I'd say, what are you going to do? And their response taught them responses. Number one, I'm going to be happy. No matter what happens today, I'm going to be happy. Number two, I'm going to do my best. Whatever I choose to do today, I'm going to do my best. If I'm going to write a test, I'm going to do my best. If I'm going to, go out and I'm going to run track, I'm going to do my best. Whatever I choose to do, I'm going to give it 100%. And the third was, I'm going to have fun. So I'd say to my kids, what are you going to do today? And they go, I'm going to be happy, Dad. I'm going to do my best and I'm going to have fun. And I used to say that if you do that every single day, you can't lose. You can't lose. You decide, I'm going to be happy no matter what, because happiness is a choice, right? And I'm going to go out, whatever I choose to do, I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to door knock, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to pick up the phone, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to phone back leads, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to market, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to give 100% of me to whatever I commit to. Now, I can't commit to everything, but whatever it is, I'm going to give my best. And then the end, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to enjoy this beautiful adventure of today. And just that thought process, doesn't it just make you feel better? It doesn't say every day I'm going to wake up, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to do my best, I'm going to have fun. And guess what? Life's short. I'll take what I get today, and then I'll get up and I'll do it all over again tomorrow. So here's 10 simple ways to be happy. And this is based on studies, everybody, okay? Stuff that I've read. Number one, exercise. I am such a huge believer in exercise. My day just doesn't start right, I don't think, without exercise. And it's funny how in exercise, my day always seems to be better. Now, maybe exercise isn't, lifting weights, might be going for a walk, whatever it is for you, but get the body moving in the morning. Number two, spend time with family and friends without cell phones, where you're connecting face-to-face, talking, engaging with people. Number three, it's not about buying things, it's about creating great memories. They always say that happy people, the happiest people in the world, don't necessarily own a lot of things. They don't have the most expensive car, the most expensive house, but they create memories. They spend money on experiences rather than things, because when you have a great experience, you remember it, you can think back, and it makes you feel good. But when you buy a brand new car, how long does that feeling last? Until the first payment comes in, usually. Number 4, practice simplicity. Practice simplicity in our lives, right? A lot of people complicate their lives. And, you know, my wife and I, my wife's just a huge believer in simplicity, right? The office, simplicity, at home, simplicity, everything simplicity, right? You know, her theory is, why would you want to own, you know, one person own 2 cars? You don't need 2 cars. You've got 2 cars to look after. You got 2 cars to get, 2 cars to wash. That's not simplicity. That's complication, right? And that's not what makes people happy, right? You know, simplicity. Number 5, I talked about this, find purpose in your work. Make sure that every day you go out and you're trying to make a contribution. Number 6, give and contribute. Look at how every day you can give something to somebody, help somebody else. You know what I mean? Giving starts the receiving process. You know, phone somebody, tell them you love them. Phone a client and say, I just want to know, I really appreciate dealing with you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Little things like that. Number 7, meditation. It's become huge in the West, right? There's all kinds of apps now. Meditate for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning. Makes a big difference. Number 8, always think about, what am I grateful for? Don't focus on what I don't have, focus on what I do have. It's just a focus, right? You know, it's amazing. Everybody gets so caught up and you know, looking at all the things in their life they don't have. And maybe I'm 55 now and I see it differently. And there's no question, when I was in my mid-20s, I was more like that. But I look at it now, I'm just so grateful for the things that I have in my life. I'm so grateful, you know, for the chair I'm sitting in. And every morning I wake up and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. It's one of the ways I start my day, and it makes me feel good because I'm creating my own focus. I'm deciding what I'm going to focus on right here. Number 9, cooperate with others. Don't compete against others. Cooperate with others. You know, and don't be jealous when somebody does more than you. Be curious when somebody does more than you. You know, take them out for lunch and find out how they're doing it. Number 10, just play, have fun, and laugh a little bit more. And that's just 10 quick ways to be a little happier. Okay, so in closing, I know that we have an agreement, a partnership with Royal LePage, which is really cool. And I just want to, and then we'll open it up for your questions. But we have something, it's basically an online virtual training interactive system. And with our partnership with Royal LePage, you can actually enroll in this whole system. And in this system, for $197 resource fee and $67 a month for 6 months, you will have access to 12 courses. Now, let me tell you what the 12 courses are. So as soon as you register, we release 4 courses to you. And these courses all have very short chapters. Each chapter is 4 to 6 to 7 minutes long. And there's about 6 chapters per course. Some have a little more, some have a little less, depending on the course. So it's very digestible information. It's also interactive. You have to do something to keep the videos going, a lot of visual assets. So it's very engaging stuff. So when you register, what we do, the initial courses we release, the lifetime referral system, how to get more referrals, profitable open houses, telephone prospecting, and door knocking course. So what we do in the first, when you first go in, you get those 4 courses. And then 30 days later, we release 2 more courses to you. So then you get geographical farming, you get social media and online marketing, complete courses. And it not only gives you the course, it actually gives you scripts. It gives you listing presentation templates, give you buyer presentation templates. You can create listing presentation with all this. And then 30 days later, what you receive is we release effective lead follow-up system, so how to convert leads to appointments, and a buyer mastery course. In other words, how to do a buyer needs analysis and sign them up to buyer agency, how to show property, how to get them on paper. 30 days later, we release listing mastery, so a complete listing course with a full role play, by the way, for buyers, buyer presentation, listing presentation. You watch a full role play, okay, that's in a house where you hear all the objections, plus relief a goal setting course. And then the last month, we release business planning simplified and the time management course. So what you do is you get 12 courses. And in the last month, like as the courses open up, in the last month, all of the courses are open to you at that point, all 12 courses. So you get 4 and then 2 every single month. And then, of course, when we get to the last month, then you get the last 2 courses, brings you up to access to all 12 courses for 6 months. And I think it's a really cool way to get some great training, if you will, because I always say that our industry, I believe, is grossly undertrained. And the reason being is because when you get a real estate license, and that's why Royal LePage is doing this, because when you get a real estate license, what do they teach you about selling? They teach you nothing. Well, that's all we've done for 20 years, is we have developed the best practices and all the ways of generating business, how to do presentations, how to do lead follow-up, how to get appointments. We create all of the collateral, which is in a file vault inside of this whole system for you. And you can see the investment because of the Royal LePage partnership, I think is very inexpensive. So if you're interested, you can see how you register there. You just go on to richardrobbins.com/RI in demand, okay, hyphen Royal LePage agent. And you can go ahead and get registered right there. Okay, so Michael, my friend, that is all I have, buddy.
Awesome. So yeah, I've shared the link in the chat. I'm going to share that link out in the email as well after this for folks who missed out. I think well, this was pretty good. So I'm gonna here's my question, because I don't have a question right now in the chat, and I'm gonna encourage those, if you have questions, now's the time. We got a great opportunity for you to ask some questions to Richard. But let's say, I would imagine on this call there are maybe some broker managers, maybe there are some team leads out there. So they watch this webinar and they're going, yes, I'm in. I want to be, I want to help my team be more productive. I want them to embrace accountability. I want them to be happier. What would you do tomorrow to get them to start embracing that?
Well, if they haven't watched this, I'd have them watch this, and then like, obviously, right? And then start to look at it and say, okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is say, okay, like all of us, what distractions do we have? We all know we have distractions, right? So the question is, are we taking control of them? Are we, realizing that maybe we do have a bit of an issue there, and you got to eliminate. So I'd sit down as a group and say, okay, what distractions can we eliminate? Then I'd move on to the structure part of it. Say, okay, well, what do we need to do? And get everybody to create their own structure. There's no one perfect plan, but what could that person do based on their personality that help them bring a little more structure to their life, right? And then as you start to move down the list, you've got the active questions. So, in our office, as an example, all of our staff have active questions, and at the end of the day, they pick their own partner, but at the end of the day, they report to each other based on their active questions to try to increase their productivity. And then in terms of the whole happiness thing, if you notice, you just got to start to bring that stuff into your life. Do more of those things. So in other words, what are some things I could do? We all know we feel better when we exercise. We all know we feel better when we focus on what we're grateful for. Like, I know it's not rocket science, but it's amazing. Real estate is simple, but it's not easy. And that's the challenge with it, right? We get so caught up in all of the distractions that are going on. So that's what I'd recommend, is just sit and have a conversation with people. And it's not, you don't have to enforce it. You just have to get people engaged and say, what would you like to do? How would you like to start changing so that you can become more productive?
Nice. Thank you. Now I'm thinking, I'm like processing everything you said. That was a lot to take in. And oh, okay, I know tomorrow I can just put on your webinar and be like, here you go. For the next hour, you guys are all just going to watch this, and then we'll talk about how we're going to implement it.
Yeah. Well, and it's really crazy, because here's the deal. What I find is that the great secret in life is knowing what to do. It's doing what we know. That's the big secret, right? You look at all the successful people in the world, they execute. So if you look at all of these ideas I just gave them, these are a lot of the reasons they're not executing at the level they probably know they should. So what we have to do is just be self-aware and all look at our lives and say, okay, where could I slightly improve? You don't have to change everything, but if you could just, make some minor critiques, or maybe say, I'm going to make one change this month, another change next month, and improve your productivity. Because if you want to do more, then you're going to have to make some change. Right? And really what we're talking about here is saying, become more self-aware in everything that we do. Every single person listening, including me, by the way, knows there's some things that I should be doing that I'm not. And everybody else knows that too. The question is why, right?
Yeah.
Why? What's stopping you, right?
Well, on that, I'll see. I don't have any other questions. I'll encourage anybody, if you want, again, opportunity to ask some questions. I'll share with you guys right now, just while I wait for you guys typing. I will say, by the way, Richard, there's a bunch of people who are saying thank you, and some people are saying they feel really motivated. So I think you made a difference today, which you can add to your list of or check this day off in your Seinfeld moment to say you made a difference today. You're
Thank you.
But I'll remind people of what's coming up. So we have next week, we got setting up Gmail for increased efficiency, Gmail tips and tricks to help you be more organized and effective. And then in March, we got simple ways you can improve your website today, which has a client click coming in to present on really helping you get more from your website. Then we also have at the end of March, the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing. They're going to come in and do a presentation for us as a webinar as well. They're going to focus on talking about that conversion from a listing presentation to a marketing consultation. Of course, they deal a lot with luxury, and that's what, one of their big things is we don't do listing presentations, we do marketing consultations. So the links to register for that are in the description of this video. You can register for those if you want. I invite you always in the RLP network. You'll find a library of these past webinars as well if you want to check some of those out. And if you have questions and comments, feel free to send us an email. Other than that, I'm still not seeing any other questions. I think you just knocked him out. I think I know I'll be honest, I need like 10 minutes to like digest and maybe re-listen to parts of this and take it in. I took a lot of notes myself.
I know it's a lot of content, but I always say that when there's no questions, one or two things happen, Mike. Okay. The first is they totally understand everything, or the second is they have no idea what I was talking about. Okay. So it's usually one extreme or the other. I just want you to know.
Well, if you could vote on which one, no.
That's right.
So, I guess what we'll say is I'll say thanks so much for everybody who tuned in. Of course, you guys are all thanking Richard. This has been an awesome webinar. And, like I said, when we started this, I said, we're talking spring markets coming up here, and people are going to start getting really busy, and let's give them, and, I think if you don't feel motivated at the end of this, I don't know. Then I think you got to wake up tomorrow and ask yourself, just wake up and just be happy, do my best, have fun, and just go out there. So, I think if you're not getting anything, that's what you're going to do tomorrow. But, I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. We wouldn't be doing these without an audience. I want to thank you, Richard, personally. Honestly, this was an amazing presentation. I loved every second. I think I could watch this every day. I think I really could. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention.
You recorded it, right?
Oh God, no, of course I did. Yes.
Well, there you go. You can watch it every day. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to email you every day so you to watch it again, Mike.
Awesome. And then I'll give you a number back and be like 7.
That's right.
But we're just getting a lot of thanks. So I'm going to thank you, everybody. Again, tune in next month. Tune into our next upcoming webinars. We're bringing this to you every month. If you liked it, hey, feel free to like the video. Never hurts either. So I'll see you guys next month. And until next time.